Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Christina Ianian. I'm market site reporter here at Nasdaq. And joining me is Amanda Bay, Vice President of Investor Relations at VinFast. We are very excited for our conversation. As you all know, VinFast reported a strong delivery of growth in the second quarter, and we're excited to highlight that along with upcoming milestones and plans heading into the second half of the year. And so, with that, Amanda, what were some of the key highlights from your Q2 earnings and the first half of 2026? And talk to me about what gives you confidence in the momentum going forward into the second half of the year.
Hey, Christina, thanks for having me here today. It is very timely for us to share an update about our first half momentum. As you mentioned, Q2 was a very strong quarter for us. We delivered over 70,000 EVs in Q2 alone. That brings our total first half deliveries to over 128,000 cars. That's an increase of 78% year over year. And this means that VinFast has effectively already achieved 43% of its full year EV guidance of 300,000 cars in the first half of the year. Um, this first half results really demonstrates the broadening of our growth, a lot more diversified, and also reflecting the strength of our product portfolio. Looking ahead to the second half of the year, we see several important drivers to sustain this momentum. The first is new model launches. We launched our smallest car to date, the VF2, and that basically opened up with, we received 12,000 orders within the first 3 days of launch. And then we also launched a new VF8 that is built on our new vehicle platform. And we expect to launch a hybrid vehicle later this year. So new model launches, followed by continued dealership expansion in our key markets across Asia, and finally, expansion into new product categories in our overseas markets. This year is the first time VinFast is starting to sell electric motorbikes in Asia outside of Vietnam. So we're very excited to see this play out. And so these three factors is really, what we expect to sustain our full year momentum for 2026.
That is amazing. Congratulations on all that growth. The numbers really speak for themselves, and it's an exciting time to be in this space. So for viewers who may not have followed VinFast's story recently, what are some of the key priorities for the remainder of 2026 and for the longer term heading into 27?
Christina, I'm glad you pointed out that it is an exciting place to be in. When we look at the world broadly, we see very uneven EV adoption. And VinFast is really excited about where we are positioned because a lot of our exposure currently comes from our core Asian markets. So looking ahead, our priorities are very clear. The first is we will continue to be very focused on delivering against our volume targets, not just for the remainder of this year, but for future years. I think by now, the market should be aware that VinFast has a track record of meeting and even exceeding its previous guidance. The second priority for us is to continue to strengthen our product portfolio. We already have over 15 car models, over a dozen e-scooter models. We're adding hybrids to our lineup, and we view this as a very important interim step as the world transitions unevenly towards EV adoption. And the final thing that we're very focused on as a top priority for our management team is rolling out our new vehicle platform. Basically, this is a new vehicle platform that will see a significant upgrade to the software-defined vehicle. It will allow for future, faster over-the-air updates, enabling consumers to experience a smarter electric vehicle going forward. So I would say these are our three nearer term priorities.
That's amazing. Going off of that point, you mentioned your focus in Asian markets, particularly in Vietnam, India, Indonesia, and the Philippines. Why are these markets so attractive, and how does your strategy differ for each?
So when we think about the global automotive landscape, it's very apparent that growth rates are patchy for EV adoption, right? For various reasons. Broadly in Southeast Asia and India, these markets bear similar socio-economic characteristics. The first thing I would call out is car ownership remains very low relative to the large populations. These are also economies that have large growing middle class. They are also economies that are highly sensitive to oil prices because they are major energy importers. So what we have effectively seen in the first half of this year with just all the geopolitics and higher oil prices is that, these economies have actually effectively said, we need to strengthen our energy security. We need to reduce reliance on fossil fuels. And one way to get there is to really accelerate the path towards electrification. It's going to come in different stages, but broadly, we've seen that across these four economies as happening. And what's been interesting to see also is in markets like Indonesia and Vietnam, EV adoption is now beyond the mass market threshold. It's more than 10%. And we think India and the Philippines will get there in the next couple of years also. So we see broadly similar characteristics. I would say that the go-to-market strategy is not the same in each country. Whenever we enter a new country, the brand positioning is slightly different depending on the consumer preferences. We also choose to enter the market with a slightly different model as to start with. So there'll be elements of the local execution that is highly localized, but the overarching strategy would be consistent in that we will aim to bring more of the green mobility ecosystem to those markets.
That's amazing. I've been following VinFast's story for a while, and a key differentiator is how VinFast is building an ecosystem around the vehicle, from charging infrastructure to battery solutions to partnerships with mobility platforms. How important is that ecosystem in driving the adoption that you were just mentioning?
This ecosystem is very unique to VinFast and to our sister companies. And I would say it's the key differentiator in how we think about EV adoption. The ecosystem is basically designed around the consumer. The whole idea is to remove as much friction and reduce the barriers to entry for a consumer to embrace EV adoption. When we think about what is holding back consumers from trying EVs, I think the top number one thing is range anxiety and battery anxiety, right? The unfamiliarity with EVs. So for us, to overcome these initial hurdles, we work closely with a sister company called Green Smart Mobility. That is essentially an EV ride-hailing platform to give consumers a chance to experience the car before going to the showroom. When we think about the next factor, it's cost. So at times, people might look at an EV and say, oh, it looks initially more expensive than an ICE vehicle. And we've been really creative around a holistic financing solution for customers. We allow them in certain markets to do battery subscription. You buy the car, but then you rent the battery from us, so that effectively lowers the monthly payments. And then we also address the charging anxiety. We have in Vietnam and in certain markets in Asia, V Green, which is a sister company also, is building out the charging infrastructure extensively to make charging a lot more convenient. So this ecosystem that's been designed around the consumer, it's what really has driven Vietnam's EV adoption from less than 2% in 2022. It's now closer to 40% in 2026. And,
That's
we're very,
amazing.
yeah, I think it surprises people when they hear 40% EV adoption. It's one of the highest in Asia Pacific.
That's amazing. It's a big jump. And speaking on that cost piece, as VinFast continues to scale, investors are not only focused on volume growth, but the economics that are driving that growth. Where do you see, from an investor relations perspective, the biggest opportunities to improve cost efficiency and margins as the business keeps growing?
So when it relates to cost efficiencies, two things have to happen. One is we need to get that level of skill. And this is something that we've talked about in the last few quarters. this year is an important year for us because we set ourselves a target of 300,000 cars. That's a 50% growth year over year. We haven't talked about 2027 targets yet, but we think somewhere in the order of magnitude similar to this year is what we would need to see. So volume growth allows us also to have more bargaining influence over our suppliers because now they know that VinFast is around and is a credible volume player, so that gives us a lot more negotiating leeway. That's the first thing. But with regards to the specific path to profitability and more optimal BOM cost structure, what VinFast has effectively done, now that we have rolled out about 15 models, our engineering team has basically said, okay, we have 15 models. There's a lot of overlapping components amongst these cars. We can make it more efficient from an engineering standpoint. What they've essentially done is to design a new vehicle platform across a small, mid, and large car segment and increase the commonality across models. Increasing the commonalities, again, gives us more volume over when we go to the suppliers to negotiate for better pricing. We're also reducing the number of components needed with a more simplified electrical architecture. So things happening inside the car with these engineering design changes effectively allows us to eventually realize a lower average BOM cost per car. We estimate that by the time all the existing models get upgraded to this new platform, it will allow us to see on average about 10 to 15% lower BOM cost than the previous generation. So this new program is going to be very critical for our longer term path to profitability. And it's something that's is being rolled out right now and expected to be more widely available in the 2027 models onwards.
It's interesting because autonomous driving is increasingly becoming more and more important and more effective in the automotive industry. What does VinFast's autonomy roadmap look like, and what milestones should investors be looking out for?
We've been working on a roadmap from level 2 plus to level 4 autonomy. And the way we think about autonomy, we're taking a very balanced approach. It's going to be a very phased rollout. Starting later this year, certain models will have level 2 plus and level 2 plus plus enabled in them. And that is based on ADAS technology that has been developed in-house at VinFast because we deliberately want to own more of our technology stack over time. When we think about the pathway towards level 4 autonomy, we recognize that there are quite a number of pathways to get there. We also recognize it's important to work with the right external partners. Right now, if you look out there in the market, there are like basically two camps. There's one camp that says, okay, let's go with the LiDAR approach. And there's another camp that says, let's go with a more camera vision only approach, right? And for VinFast, for us, we think there's merit in both, but ultimately we want to find the most cost-efficient solution. So to date, we have announced a few level 4 partnerships. The first one was with AutoBrains Technologies. This is a vision-only camera-based ADAS company that is based in Israel, and we work very closely with them, and we're conducting robotaxi trials with them. We have several cars that are basically doing robotaxi trials in Hanoi right now with them. We also announced an MOU with both AutoBrains and NVIDIA in June this year, NVIDIA to be a key supplier for our level 4 autonomy initiatives. So these are the two external partners that we have publicly announced, and you can expect us to share more in the coming months. So for us, the milestones that investors should be looking out for is more ADAS features in our cars, the expansion of our robotaxi fleet from several cars right now to more to come in 2027, and also more partnerships.
Going off of your point, this evolution that you're speaking about goes beyond just selling vehicles. There's software, AI, new mobility models that are becoming more and more important. How do you see VinFast's business model evolving over the longer term?
So I think in the next couple of years, we'll still be focused on selling the cars and the e-scooters. I think that'll be the main business model. But we are already beginning to roll out certain subscription services, smart services in the car in Vietnam. And yes, we're offering annual packages for like smart voice services and like other lifestyle add-ons within the car. So that is happening right now, and we would like to launch those services more broadly in other Asian markets sometime in 2027. We are of the view that longer term, with more AI and software in the car, there's more opportunities for us to deepen the customer relationship rather than just selling the car upfront.
Like I said before, we've been following VinFast's story. VinFast has gone through significant evolution since becoming a public company. How is the company different today from when investors saw it when it first listed on Nasdaq?
It's vastly different. It's been a vastly different transformation, and a lot of that is due to the speed at which the company has executed. So when the company listed on Nasdaq back in, I think, August 2023, it's been 4 years, VinFast only had a couple of models, I think three or four EV models and a few e-scooters. We only had one factory in Vietnam, and EV adoption at the time in Vietnam was less than 2%. Today, 4 years later, we have over 15 car models, over a dozen electric two-wheeler models, more than 450 showrooms globally. We are selling in a dozen countries. Cumulatively, we have delivered over 500,000 cars since we started producing EVs. We also have a global manufacturing footprint. We have two factories in Vietnam, one in India and one in Indonesia. So the transformation has been vast, and I think at times that may come as a surprise to people who might not have been following our story closely.
That is amazing. That's exponential growth. And from all of us at Nasdaq, we're so proud to be a part of that journey as well. If there's three things that you would like investors watching today to remember about VinFast, what would they be?
First, I think investors should remember that VinFast has had a track record of meeting its delivery targets. We're very focused on scaling that, and we have demonstrated track record. So we're very serious about being a scaled player long term. The second point is about our ecosystem approach. From day, we've not just been about selling the car, we've been talking about transforming consumer behavior around making EVs part of the lifestyle and reducing that friction. So this is a key differentiator in our go-to-market entry. Third, I would say is our priority is to translate the scale that we have into more profitable growth. And I talked about that new vehicle platform yielding, on average 10 to 15% lower BOM costs. That is a very important part of the next phase of our journey. And I think it's something that investors should pay attention to. So effectively, we have moved beyond demonstrating that we can make the cars. We've already shown that we can make and deliver the cars at scale. And now we're very focused on making that more profitable going forward.
That's amazing. Well, congratulations on all your growth, Amanda, and thank you for your time. For the last 10 minutes, we'd like to open up the floor. If anyone has any questions, we had a few questions come in. Please feel free to submit them. We had a question from one of our viewers. We've seen considerable volatility in oil prices this year. Has that had any meaningful impact on consumer interest in electric vehicles or on the broader pace of EV adoption in VinFast's key markets?
Yes. Our exposure to date has been mainly in Southeast Asia and India. And as I mentioned earlier, these markets were very vulnerable to the oil price shock. In fact, what we have seen is governments in India, Indonesia, effectively telling their citizens, work from home to save on fuel. And that was a very real crisis. These Asian economies are all dependent on oil imports. And as a result of that, consumers went out there and actually embraced EVs. All of a sudden, it was like, oh, we need a backup option because petrol's too expensive. So there was definitely an opportunity for OEMs like ourselves to double down and educate the consumer about the benefits of EVs. And ultimately, it's about the total cost of ownership. But it wasn't just consumers who were embracing EVs. Our market teams in Indonesia and the Philippines have reported much higher interest and orders coming in from other taxi operators. They even received orders from, I believe, police units looking to switch the police cars to EVs. So we've definitely seen businesses and governments embrace more electrification.
It's an interesting point you brought up because there is still a considerable amount of debate around the pace of global EV transition. What do you think investors misunderstood about where EV adoption is heading, especially in emerging markets?
I think investors misunderstand how open the emerging market consumer is to new technologies. I think part of it is also four-wheeler ownership is relatively low. I think if you look at Indonesia as an example, like car ownership is for every 1,000 people, it's probably less than 100 cars per 1,000 people. I think it's something in the same ballpark for India. So these countries still have very large motorbike populations in relation to the car ownership rate. So there's still a lot of greenfield to grow the overall auto market. And at the same time, because of the openness to newer technologies, consumers are okay to make the first car purchase be an electric car. It's different in developed markets where there's a lot more established legacy OEMs that have been there for many, many years. And, consumer habits are harder to change, right? I mean, broadly, I think the lack of charging infrastructure is still a key hurdle to overcome, but there's definitely more openness in the emerging market consumer mindset versus developed markets.
Absolutely. VinFast has expanded rapidly across a number of markets. How do you balance that ambition to grow globally, with the need to remain disciplined around capital allocation and execution?
We've definitely had to make certain trade-offs over the last few years. There's been a recognition that we cannot be everywhere at once, which is why over the last 2 years, the primary focus has been to launch more models closer to home, and then, look to reestablish the brand awareness and strengthen it in other markets when the time is right. I think a key example of that is, our decision to open factories in India and Indonesia to capitalize on a growing middle class and just a more open emerging market consumer mindset. I think that was a very um, key turning point for us, to localize production closer in Asia first.
From a leadership standpoint, how are you seeing this?
In terms of the localization of of the manufacturing footprint.
Yes.
Um, so for India and Indonesia specifically, these are two countries that the governments have publicly stated that they want to move up the EV value chain, right? For those who are not aware, Indonesia is one of the largest producers of nickel, which is a key component in EV batteries. And the government has been pulling investments from other players into the country, and VinFast is one of them. India has a very established automotive industrial base already, but they want to attract more players also to localize and also move up further the value chain. So we see very open government attitudes towards localizing EV manufacturing. They've given a lot of incentives to manufacturers like VinFast to enter. Um, and it's turned out to be the right decision for us, especially in a market like India. We only started selling since August of last year, and we're already the top four battery EV brand in the country after less than a year of selling there.
That's amazing. How does your messaging differ for investors and consumers who are still hesitant about the EV market?
I don't think our messaging is necessarily different. I think our core values about making an EV accessible to a consumer, it's the same reason why when we think about our own unit economics, which is something that an investor would care about, right? We want to make the car accessible, but we also want to make it profitable. And that's why we have to do these things like get skill, make the engineering changes and so on to become more profitable longer term. So I think our messaging is actually the same. I just think that maybe investors have overlooked the fact that we have executed on what we've said that we intend to do, and that we've made great strides, especially in what we have stated to be our core markets, which is Vietnam, India, Indonesia, and the Philippines.
Do you have plans to expand beyond these markets?
Yes, most certainly. We have a presence in the US and in Europe. That's a bit smaller than where we are in Asia right now, but certainly, we've always said we wanted to be a global player from day one, and there is a need to tackle these developed markets at the appropriate time, right? Like I mentioned, we are rolling out a new generation of cars, and then at the right time, we would like to bring these cars to other markets beyond Asia. But certainly, yes, international expansion is a key priority for us.
That's amazing. It's technology as a force for good.
Yes, it is.
Amazing. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for your time and thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you for having me, Christina.